welcome or welcome back to Made by Manda Mao. I'm Manda and I make stuff. For those of you who don't know me, I am a crochet artist. I mostly focus on amigurumi plushie type items that I sell at market events and online. And today I am here to share with you any kind of knowledge that I have on how to find and sign up for vendor events in your area. Whether this is the beginning of your crochet journey or if you're just looking for some helpful tips, hopefully you will find some helpful things in this video. I'm going to kind of split the video into a couple different parts. So first I'm going to talk about anything you might need to sign up for market events and things you should keep in mind before you sign up for those events. And then I'm going to talk about how to find various events in your area. And then I will be talking about how to select events that will hopefully be the most successful for you. So I'm going to jump in and start talking about what you might want to think about having or what you might need prior to signing up for these vendor events. Some of these things may be required to sign up for the event or might be required for you to have by the time you get to the event. So these are some things to keep in mind for that. And I'm going to start with display items. I'll get to this a little later in the video, but I would definitely recommend starting with maybe a smaller event so that you don't have to have a giant display right off the bat. You could just have maybe a table or two and very bare minimum things that you could find at the dollar store, you could use around your house. I remember the first small event that I did, I found like little baskets that I had around my house that were already full of things, but I just dumped all the stuff out and just used those for my event, and it worked great. And eventually, as I continued doing more markets, I invested in some better display items, but you definitely don't need that right off the bat. A lot of these events will require you to bring your own table. A lot of times they require you to bring your own chairs as well. And a lot of times they might also require you to bring a 10 by 10 tent or like a specific size tent for your setup. That will not always be required, but for some bigger events they do require that. And I've even seen some events that have specific requirements for the tent. You definitely want to make sure if you are bringing a tent that you have some kind of sandbags or weights to hold down your tent. Oftentimes that will be required if you have a tent set up so that your tent doesn't blow away in any kind of weather. So if a tent is required, you want to make sure you're prepared with that as well. I have seen some events that specify that you have to have a neutral colored tent. That's kind of a rare thing I've seen, but that's just something to note as well. If you're planning on buying a brand new tent, which like I said, you do not need one right off the bat, unless you're, specifically signing up for an event that will definitely require it. But if you are looking to invest in a new tent, that might be something for you to consider. I don't want any of this other stuff to scare you or intimidate you. These are very rare things that I see required for event signups, but I'm just trying to share any kind of knowledge I might have or any things that I may have seen. I have seen events require a tax ID number for your business. Again, this is not something that you need right off the bat. It is not common for applications to require that from what I've seen thus far. But if that is something you are interested in doing for your business, it is free to sign up for a tax ID number. You will definitely want to do some more research about which kind of business would benefit you, whether it's an LLC or a sole proprietorship, but that is definitely something you can look into down the road. I did just run into a situation where I needed business liability insurance for a farmer's market I was hoping to do over the summer. I did look into small business insurance and I was able to find something pretty cheap. It was like less than $30 a month and I can cancel it at any time. And it just ended up being worth it for me because that will be a reoccurring event I'll be doing a lot over the summer. And honestly, the sign up process was really easy. I didn't need a business license or anything like that. I actually just filed under my regular name and had a DBA, which means like doing business as, and then my business name, and I was able to file it that way. I didn't need any kind of crazy documents for that or anything, so that was awesome. Again, not something you need to stress about right away, but just be aware that there are situations that might require that. And if they do, you do not need to be afraid of the process. It is not that scary, I promise. Another thing I would recommend thinking about before you sign up for a market event is making sure you have enough time to get some inventory prepped. This was something that was kind of stressful when I first started doing markets. I was so excited to be signing up for things. I just started signing up like one after another, and I didn't really have enough time in between to have a lot of inventory prepped. So I would go to an event, almost totally sell out of everything I had, and then I would only have like a week or two to prep an entire new inventory for my next market, which was really stressful. I can definitely do another video on how I do all of my inventory prep and tracking for my market events now. I do it in a pretty organized process, so let me know in the comments if that's something that you would be interested in seeing, because I would definitely recommend doing some kind of inventory tracking prior to your market to just make things more organized and less stressful for you. Okay, now I'm going to talk about how to find these vendor and market events in your area and what my favorite ways to find events are. Starting with Facebook. Facebook is my personal favorite way to find events in my area, and there are multiple ways on Facebook that you can do that. So the first thing I would recommend is to join vendor groups on Facebook. There are a ton of vendor groups. If you just Google like vendor events and then the name of your area, or craft fairs, the name of your area, you might need to like play around with some terms to find specific names of Facebook groups, but I can almost promise you there will be some. And you just join those groups and it's amazing in there. People are constantly posting new events to sign up for. I personally find a lot of events in those groups. That's probably the spot where I find most of the events that I end up signing up for. So I would definitely recommend joining some of those groups. And if you're willing to travel, you could even sign up for like vendor groups in further areas, in different cities that might be close to you. So definitely look for some of those. In addition to just the specific vendor group pages, I have noticed that sometimes local events in the area or at high schools and stuff like that, they're not always posted to the vendor groups. So another thing I like to do is look up neighborhood groups of different neighborhoods in the area or different boroughs in the area, even specific schools in the area. You can find their specific Facebook pages and follow them as well. And a lot of times they will be posting events directly on their pages that might not make it into the vendor groups. Another Facebook resource that I really like to use is just the events tab in Facebook. You can literally go to the events tab and it has a ton of upcoming events that are going on in the area. I'm pretty sure you can search like specific keywords. If you wanted to search like craft events, you could search by date. I think you could search by the specific proximity. And I like that feature because it shows people that I follow on Facebook, like what they're interested in going to. You can kind of see how many people are interested in attending those specific events, so you kind of get a gauge of like how big the event will be, and then you could go right to that event page, and a lot of times it will have the contact information or the sign up information of how you can look into being a vendor for that specific event. So definitely check out all of those resources for sure. Another great way to find events in your area is a straight up Google search. You can use those kind of terms that I'm mentioning, try and play with different terms, market events in your area, craft fairs in your area, and you'll be surprised with how many results you actually get. There's an event page in Google as well, which is similar to the Facebook event tab, so you can get a lot of info there. So I would definitely recommend Google as a reliable resource as well. Another suggestion would be neighborhood newspapers. A lot of times I do see upcoming events listed in my local newspaper. I will say that is hit or miss sometimes, because sometimes it's not listed in the newspaper until the event is really close to happening, and sometimes that's a little too late to be signing up for the actual event. Definitely something to keep in mind, which I'll restate later in the video, is you want to be early on these events. Some of them book out months and months in advance, so the earliest you can get the info and the earliest you could sign up, that would be the best. And lastly, another incredible resource of how to find events in your area would just be word of mouth. I love networking at the markets that I go to. I love talking to other vendors there and asking them what they have going on and what has been successful for them in the past, because they know what has been successful for them, and a lot of times they are more than willing to share that information with you. I've made some incredible connections that way. People I still stay in touch with that are always sending me what events they'll be at. So you can literally go to events and talk to vendors there. You could talk to vendors at events that you're currently attending. You could ask people in the area what kind of events they have seen or know of. You know, ask around. I think that that is really reliable and valuable information. So those are some great ways to find events in your area. And now I'm going to kind of talk about how to make sure you're signing up for good events and other things to kind of think about when you are signing up. So the first thing I look at when I'm signing up for an event is the vendor fee. The majority of these events will have a vendor fee, which is a fee that you pay to have a space at the event. These fees can definitely range. I've gone from paying nothing to a vendor event. I have my most expensive vendor event yet coming up, which is $175 vendor fee. However, that is a very big event, and my sweet spot is I try to stay in between like $30 to $60 because there's a lot to consider when you're thinking about a vendor fee. You have to think about how big the event is. You obviously want to be making money off of the event, hopefully. So if you're spending a ton of money on a vendor fee and you don't think that the event will be big enough to make that money back, that's something you have to think about. When I first started doing events, I started with a monthly event that was a $15 vendor fee, which wasn't much at all. It was a really small setup, which was great. So that was definitely a great way to kind of intro myself into market selling. And I would definitely recommend that to get more comfortable as well. So that's definitely something you just want to be thinking about. Another thing I would definitely consider when thinking about what events you want to sign up for is think about your target audience. Who are you trying to sell to? This is really, really important because you want to make sure you're going to events where your target clientele is there. For example, if you're selling baby items, you can target mom events and family events. I mostly sell crochet plushies, so my specific target audience is kids. So I try to find events where I know kids will be there. School events are great for me. Family events are really good. I remember when I first started, I tried selling at an elderly home, and luckily some of the employees had bought some things for their families and stuff, but I don't think I sold one plushie to like any of the elderly people there. So I learned that that was not where my target audience is, and I should not be signing up for events like that. Also, I hate that I even have to say this, but you do need to keep an eye out for scam events, especially if you're in all these Facebook groups. Unfortunately, there are a lot of scammers out there that are trying to get money from people. They are not the event organizers. They will pose as event organizers and post event flyers that may be for a legitimate event, but they are not people that are actually connected to the event, and a lot of times they're just trying to get money from you. And a way to kind of avoid that is if you see an event posted in a vendor group or something, I always try to Google the website and find that specific website for the event, and I will look at the contact information on that website to make sure that the contact information that those people are giving in the Facebook group are legitimate. And if it doesn't match, I will tend to email whatever email is on the website and maybe even ask them like, hey, I saw this in a Facebook group. Is this you? Are these the correct contacts for this event? You could always call the actual venue of where the event will be. If it's at a school or somewhere like that, you could give them a call and ask them if it is a legitimate event. Maybe ask them who the contact people are for that event. But definitely do some research before you start sending people money, please. If you're wondering about other ways you can figure out if the event will be successful, something I definitely recommend is go to the event before you sign up for it. If it's an event that occurs monthly that you can go to and check out before you sign up to be a vendor there, definitely do that. Try and get a gauge of what kind of people are there, how many people are there, what the vibe is, if it's something you think you would like doing. That's definitely the best way to see if the event is successful. Another way to see what events will be successful is to, like I previously said, ask other vendors. And if you don't have direct contact with other vendors, if you're not at markets all the time in a place where you can ask other vendors, that is another great way to utilize the vendor Facebook groups. You can post directly in there and say, hey, has anybody been to this event before? How was it? Was it successful for you? Did you make your vendor feedback? And like I said, people are usually more than willing to share their thoughts and feedback. Some other things to think about when you're thinking about if the event will be successful for you or not. These are some questions I personally like to ask the event organizers prior to signing up. I will reach out to them and ask how the event is being marketed, meaning How are they sharing it on social media? Are they getting the word out about it? Is it in the newspaper? How are people being notified about this event? Because that is crucial to how many people will be at the event, which will directly relate to how well your sales end up being. If it's an event I'm unfamiliar with and I can't find a lot of information on it, I will definitely ask them if this is the first year they're doing the event. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but an event that is just happening this year for the first time might not get the attendance that an event that's been happening for 45 years that everyone in the city knows about goes to every year. I always like to ask about attendance. What has attendance looked like for this event in prior years, if it is a reoccurring event? Sometimes you can find that information without directly having to ask them. If that specific event has a Facebook event page, usually, like I kind of touched upon earlier in the video, you can kind of see how many people are interested in attending the event, and that will kind of give you a gauge of how many people might be there. If there is a specific website for that event, a lot of times they will share information about how many people have attended the event in years prior. Because if it's a good number, usually they're bragging about it, so that's what you want to see. And another thing, I've really made it a point to ask event organizers lately. If you've watched my other videos, you'll know that this is a big thing for me right now. I am asking them if they vet their vendors. And what I mean by that is some events just let anybody sign up. There's literally a page, you sign up and you're on the list to go to the event, which sounds great in theory compared to other events where you might have to submit a lot of photos of your work, and they kind of take some time to see who's selling what, and they will let you know if you're accepted into the event or not based on your work and based on if there are other people there that will be selling the same thing as you. They don't want a ton of people there selling the same thing. And while that might be a little longer of a process, I would definitely prefer that to an event where anybody can sign up and I show up and there's 4 other people there selling crochet plushies. You know, at the end of the day, we're all trying to be successful, we're all trying to make money, and it's just hard to do that sometimes at events that aren't huge and there's a ton of other sellers selling the same exact thing as you. Sometimes it's just a little challenging. So to kind of get a gauge on that, I definitely like to ask the event organizers, are you vetting your vendors? And if they don't vet their vendors and you still want to sign up, you can still ask like, hey, are there other people there that are selling the same thing as me? And they should definitely be able to give you that information. Though I have run into situations where I ask them and at that specific time they might only have like one other person that's selling plushies, but by the time the event actually happens, they had various other people who are selling plushies sign up as well. So I show up and there's just more plushie vendors than I would like to see there. So I would definitely prefer if they just vet their vendors and are selective about who they let into the market, honestly. Do not feel uncomfortable asking event organizers these questions, and if they cannot give you answers to these questions, that is a red flag. That is their job to know the answers to these questions, and if they're kind of like dodging it and can't give you a direct answer as to like how many people went to the event before and stuff like that, that's a red flag. That's something I dealt with recently as well, so please be aware of that. I'm trying to think of anything else that I maybe forgot to mention that would be helpful for you guys. I would definitely ask if the information is not already provided. A lot of times it will say when you're applying what this policy is. Definitely see what their refund policy is, or if there is a rescheduled date in the event that weather is an issue, or if like for some reason you weren't able to attend the event. Weather is a pretty big deal. A lot of these events are going to be outdoor events, and there are events that I've been to where they say like if it gets rained out, if the weather's not good, you're not getting your money back. So if you're paying a lot of money for a vendor fee and your event gets rained out and there's no reschedule date and there's no refund policy, you're out that money. So you definitely want to make sure you find that information. And I'll also say, like, make sure you plan your setup prior to going to your first event. I do this for all my events. If you've seen my other market prep videos, I always do a trial display of what my whole setup will look like. I time it out to see how long it will take me to set up, and I do the whole test setup and I make sure I take pictures of it so that when I get to the event, I can just look at the pictures and know how the setup is supposed to look. And it is so much less stressful that way than trying to figure it out on the spot when you're already stressed, and it could just get a little crazy. So definitely try to plan your setup in advance. If you guys are interested, I would definitely be open to doing another video about tips when you actually get to the market, other things you might need for your setup and display, and do's and don'ts of actually going to the market. So let me know in the comments if that's something you would like to see as well. I hope you found some helpful information in this video. I was really scared before I started doing market events, and I watched a lot of videos like this, and it was so helpful, and I'm so happy that I ended up doing it. I absolutely love market events. They are so fun, and honestly, everyone I go to and everyone I sign up for, I'm constantly learning new things, and you will too. Thank you so much for watching this video if you did. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss any videos coming up in the future. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!